Dark clouds loomed over the battlefield. The year was 479 BC, the final stand in a war that had lasted decades. On one side, a mighty Persian army, 100,000 strong, led by the ruthless commander Mardonius. On the other, a vastly outnumbered force of 10,000 elite Greek warriors, led by Sparta and Athens. This was the Battle of Plataea, the moment that would decide the fate of Greece itself. The Persian invasion had brought fire and destruction to Greek lands. The city of Athens had already been burned once, and the Persians were confident that no force could stop their unstoppable march west. But the Greeks were not ready to surrender. Led by the Spartan commander Pausanias, the Greeks had taken up position on the fields of Plataea. But Persia had a powerful weapon, its cavalry. Fast, deadly, and designed to strike fear into the enemy, the Persian horsemen rode out to harass the Greek lines, cutting off their supplies and water sources. The Greeks held their ground, but time was running out. Pausanias called for a council of war. The decision? A tactical retreat. The Greeks would fall back to higher ground, where Persian cavalry would be less effective. But as they moved, the Spartans found themselves isolated. The Persian cavalry saw their chance and struck, surrounding the Spartans before they could reach safety. At the same time, the Athenian forces on the left flank were under attack. The Thebans and Thessalians, Greek allies of the Persians, fought with savage intensity, blocking any chance of the Athenians coming to the Spartans' aid. The battle was spiraling into chaos. Then, in the distance, a storm of dust. The Persian reinforcements had arrived. Mardonius himself led the charge. His infantry, the very core of the Persian war machine, advanced toward the Spartan lines. From the Persian ranks, 1,000 archers stepped forward. A deadly rain of arrows darkened the sky. The Spartans, trained from birth to withstand the horrors of war, raised their bronze shields and endured. They stood firm, waiting. Pausanias, sensing the moment, gave the order. Advance! The Spartans moved. Slowly at first, shields locked together, spears at the ready. Then they charged. A wall of iron and muscle slammed into the Persian ranks. The Persians, lightly armored, were not prepared for the sheer force of the Spartan assault. The battlefield became a scene of carnage. Persian soldiers fell by the hundreds, their ranks shattered by the relentless push of the Spartans. Hand-to-hand combat erupted. Persian warriors, skilled with the bow and spear, were no match for the brutal, disciplined tactics of the Greeks. The Spartan phalanx did not break. And then it happened. The Spartans reached Mardonius. The Persian commander, mounted on his warhorse, barked orders to rally his men. It was too late. A Spartan warrior struck him down, killing him instantly. The moment his lifeless body hit the ground, the Persian army broke. Fear spread like wildfire. Their leader was dead. The retreat turned into a full-blown rout. Thousands of Persian soldiers threw down their weapons and fled. On the other side of the battlefield, the Athenians, after hours of bitter fighting, had finally crushed the Medized Greeks. With their enemies routed, they joined the pursuit, cutting down Persian soldiers as they ran. By the end of the day, the Persian army was annihilated. The Greeks had achieved the impossible. 10,000 warriors had destroyed an army 10 times their size. The ancient historian Herodotus recorded this battle as one of the greatest victories in history. But how many had truly perished? Some sources claim the Greeks lost only 160 men. Others suggest it was 1,400. The Persians, however, suffered catastrophic losses, between 50,000 and 80,000 men. With this victory, the Second Persian invasion of Greece came to an end. The Persian Empire, once believed to be unstoppable, was forced to retreat. Never again would they attempt to conquer Greece. Freedom had been won. But the impact of Plataea did not end on the battlefield. News of the victory spread like wildfire across Greece. In Sparta, warriors celebrated their greatest triumph. In Athens, the people rejoiced, not just for their survival, but for what it meant. Greece had defied the greatest empire the world had ever known. The Persian dream of conquest was shattered. King Xerxes, who had once stood on the shores of the Hellespont, watching his mighty army march toward Greece, would never return. His once unbreakable war machine had been crushed by a smaller, but far more determined enemy. For the Greeks, Plataea was more than just a battle. It was a statement, a message to the world that freedom, unity, and courage could overcome even the mightiest of empires. Plataea was not just a military victory, it was a defining moment for Western civilization. It proved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a free people, united by a common cause, could overcome the might of an empire. The Persians had come with vast numbers, with an empire stretching from Egypt to India, with resources that far outmatched the scattered Greek city-states. And yet, it was the Greeks who stood victorious. The significance of Plataea stretched far beyond the battlefield. It was the final battle of the Greco-Persian Wars, the moment that ensured the independence of Greece. If the Persians had won, the future of Greece and the world would have been drastically different. The cultural explosion of Athens, the philosophical breakthroughs of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, the birth of democracy itself, none of it would have happened. But the Greeks had won, and their world would never be the same again. For the Persian Empire, the defeat at Plataea was humiliating. Just a year earlier, their king Xerxes had stood on the shores of the Hellespont, watching his massive army march into Greece. He had burned Athens to the ground. He had crushed Greek resistance at Thermopylae. He had seemed unstoppable. And yet, now his forces were in full retreat. Xerxes had left Mardonius in charge, trusting him to finish what the great king had started. But with Mardonius dead and his forces shattered, Persia's dream of conquering Greece had turned to ash. In the aftermath, the surviving Persian forces retreated toward Ionia, in Asia Minor, where Persian rule remained strong. They would never again attempt an invasion of Greece on this scale. Back in Persia, Xerxes still ruled over a vast empire, but the aura of invincibility was gone. The Persian army, once thought to be an unstoppable force, had been defeated not just once, but multiple times, at Marathon, at Salamis, and now at Plataea. The Greek victories would inspire revolts in the Persian-controlled Greek cities of Asia Minor, weakening the empire from within. Though Persia remained a superpower, Plataea had proved they were not invincible.